The Pirates have had almost no success on the road. And a lot of the time, they don't even look like the same team as the one that sports home whites. That's next on Locked On Pirates.
You are Locked On Pirates, your daily Pittsburgh Pirates podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Welcome to Locked On Pirates. I'm Gary Morgan. Today, I want to talk about last night's game, of course, but more from a perspective of what the Pirates have done on the road all season. I've got a different idea for the All-Star game I want to run past y'all, and I want to discuss what I think are starting to emerge as some of Don Kelly's tendencies. We've now had a decent stretch of time with him as the new skipper, and I really want to kind of just talk about some things that I think he's for sure done differently and some things that I think we've noticed as we've gone through this process a little bit. So the Pittsburgh Pirates lost 9-3 to the Mariners. I want to talk a little bit about it, but I also want to talk more specifically about their struggles on the road this season. Let's start with the game. Andrew Heaney didn't have it. The Royals hit 4 home runs yesterday. I mean, that was the real difference. They were just crushing baseballs. Even the fact that it was only 9-3, I actually think is a blessing because Tommy Pham probably made 2 or 3 really nice plays in the outfield that I think could have easily added to the score. One play where I was a little confused as to why he didn't go home with the ball right away. I thought they had a shot at a play at the plate, but nitpicking when you lose 9-3. And I think he did more than enough to cancel that out by hitting the 2-run homer. Pirates picked up another one in the 9th in garbage time, but so be it. I could talk a lot about that game and some individual specific things, but Chase Sugart's been good. I don't really need to bury him for having an off outing. And Andrew Heaney, well, this is Andrew Heaney. You're going to get spectacular, and it's going to be followed up by not so spectacular. There's a reason that so many people are willing to have him be somebody traded at the deadline, and it's not just that he's on an expiring contract. I think a lot of people think that's probably the weak point in the rotation, and I think they're probably right. Not that I think he hasn't done a good job here, just, he's the veteran. He's going to go. Their struggles on the road this season have just been remarkable, though. If you've been following the Bucks in 2025, and most of you have, obviously, if you wouldn't be here, it's been a tale of 2 teams. One that's competitive at home, and one that just can't seem to get it done on the road. So I want to kind of dig into it a little bit. Numbers usually don't lie, right? As of July 7th, the Pirates sit at 38-54. It's good for 5th in the NL Central. Here's the kicker. They're 26-21 at home. I mean, that's pretty respectable. It's a .553 winning percentage. On the road, they are a brutal 12-33, which is just a .273 winning percentage. Awful. That's a massive gap. And it's not just bad luck. This is a consistent trend throughout the season. In fact, they've been shut out in 3 straight road games heading into the All-Star break. And, those were all against the Mariners, but this Kansas City game, 3 runs, it wasn't really as much as you'd hope. They were going against a pitcher they probably should have scored runs on, and he dominated them. So let's just zoom in a little bit here. In March, they went 1-4. In April, 11-15. May was rough, 10-18. And then in June, they actually posted a winning record of 14-13. So what happened? Well, June featured a lot of home games, and they took advantage. But once they hit the road again in early July, same issues have resurfaced. So why are the Pirates struggling so much away from PNC Park? I mean, it doesn't really need to go any further than offensive consistency. At home, the Pirates' OPS is 699, and their average is 253. Neither of those are altogether exciting marks or anything. But on the road, they have a league worst 581 OPS and a league worst 206 average. I mean, it's not great. They've been shut out 13 times this season. Most of them have come on the road. It's not going to cut it in road games. When the team's on the road, they seem to have a lot more defensive lapses, a lot more unforced errors and missed opportunities. The biggest thing for me, this is a team that has openly complained about their home field in relation to the offense. They've obviously outperformed at home versus the road. So I don't necessarily understand why they're complaining about their home venue when they're doing much better at home. Why are they better at home? Does the pitching stack up better at home? You would think like it's a pitcher's ballpark and that's really where it's coming from. But that's not what I think we're seeing. I think we maybe see a few more bullpen blowups on the road. And I guess in a way that could be considered unlucky. But it feels to me like just everyone in general has less of everything on the road. And it makes no sense to me because this isn't a team that's getting supported super well at home. And don't take that out of context and make it out like I'm scolding fans or whatever. You don't have to go to watch them. I understand why you don't. But at home, let's be real. They're drowned out by visiting fans if it's a team that's within driving distance. So, like, if the Cubs come here, or the Reds, or the Mets, or the Phillies, or really most of those teams, if they come to town, it's largely taken over by the visiting fans. So it's not as though the team is being super well supported. And when those fans aren't there, it's a half empty building. And a full third of those people are people that are just as likely to be chanting for the owner to sell the team as they are anybody doing anything on the field. So I don't think like the home environment is especially like conducive to winning. I'm glad they do well at home. It's not as though I'm upset about it or anything, but like there shouldn't be that much of a stark difference between home and away when you're this type of team. This isn't a home run driven team. So this isn't a team that's going to go and someplace that home runs are easier to come by and do well, because that's not going to set up for their game anyway. Although I do think there is something to that. I think there is something to, they get to some of these road stadiums. They're traditionally known as hitters' ballparks. And for whatever reason, the things that they try to do right at home, hitting the line drives, hitting balls to the right side, all the things that you want them to do, that small ball, that manufacturing type stuff, maybe something gets into their head that on the road they don't need to do that. Maybe the complaining about PNC Park has actually gotten into their heads and they think that they can play a different kind of game when they're on the road than when they do at home. I think the evidence is piling up that they can't. But there's something there, and it's not just a weird anomaly. They're a different baseball team on the road. They look different. They play different. They don't look as focused. They don't look as ready. I don't know what it is. Like if I wanted to make a joke of it, I would suggest that they're flying around like the old Cleveland Indians playing for Major League. Where like they're so poorly rested by the time they get where they're going because of the way they've been forced to travel. But that's not what's going on here. Pirates are cheap in a lot of ways, but not that. There's something going on. And I don't know what it is. Maybe their traveling chef sucks. Maybe the hotels they're getting aren't good, although the visiting or the home teams usually decide where the visitors stay for the most part. But yeah, it's mystifying because I can't pinpoint anything that I can directly say is the reason. I just can't. I For some reason their offense is that much worse. And it makes no sense. But a 206 average on away games at this point is crazy. The Rockies are better. The Rockies have a 208 average on the road. They have a 611 OPS on the road. The Pirates have a 581. You can make excuses or talk about what's been missing from this team or whatever, and it's all valid. But when you look at this thing side by side, what they're doing away and home, there's nothing I can say that's going to make sense of it. But it's certainly a thing. We're too far into the season to pretend it's not. It's up to the coaching staff and ultimately the players to figure out what that is and make it right. Because one way or another, a lot of these players are returning. And if this is a trend that they're going to live under, well, it ain't going to get much better next year because you're always going to play half your games away from your home ballpark. When we come back, let's do my innovative all-star idea. Let's see what we think. See what you guys think of my idea. See if maybe we can make the all-star game fun again. Summer sports are in full swing, and whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game more exciting. You're already following the action. Why not make it a little more thrilling with FanDuel? You can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach. It's easy to use, fast to pay out, and makes even regular season games feel like must-watch events. New to FanDuel? New customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started. Hey everyone, welcome back to the show. Make sure you hit me with a subscribe and a like, and I appreciate so many of you actually going out to social media and evangelizing a little bit about the show. I really appreciate it. I saw a ton of them, tried to reply to as many of them as I could. Saw a few of them started some pretty cool conversations online. So thank you for doing that. I really appreciate it. It's not easy to step out of your comfort zone and admit that you listen to or take in any pirate stuff. It seems to start some bad conversations with people online. So I appreciate you stepping out of your comfort zone and doing that for me. So today, I want to dive into something that has been bugging me and probably a lot of you for years now. The MLB All-Star Game. I mean, let's be honest. It's gotten kind of stale, right? I mean, sure, it's fun to see the best players on the field, but where's the fire? Where's the competition? It's supposed to be a celebration of the game, but it often feels more like a glorified exhibition, which it is. So I've got a proposal, something I think is bold and fresh. Let's turn the All-Star Game into a 3-day mini tournament and skills competition. Yeah, I want to play more baseball. That's right. So let's talk about the format that I would be going for here first. Here's how it would work. First off, we completely ditched the idea that every team needs to be represented. First, I think they would be, and you'll see why when we get to this, but you'd completely take it away. This is not about participation trophies. This is about showcasing the best talent in the game, period. I'd split the players into 4 teams. I'd create one called USA East, and that's players that were born east of the Mississippi, or USA West, that's players that were born west of the Mississippi. Then we'd have Latin America, and that's all your players from the Dominican, Venezuela, Cuba, Puerto Rico, and others, of course. And then the world. So that'd be players from Japan, Korea, Canada, Australia, Europe, you name it. Like the Pirates are trying to corner the market in Africa, so Uganda probably gets quite a few. in the future. I mean, that's something I think would be pretty cool. Here's how the 3-day breakdown would go for me. This is the way I would bust this up. Day 1, you'd have like the USA East versus Latin America. And then game 2 would be the USA West versus the world. Good games right out of the gate. No coasting, no jogging to first base, just real competition. Day 2, in my 3-day event, would be a skills showcase. This is where I think we bring some fun into it. Kind of like NBA All-Star Saturday, but it'd be baseball style. Team home run derby, not just one guy, but the whole team effort. Like you want USA West to win the home run derby. The fastest man race, like who's the true burner on the base paths. Outfield throwing accuracy. Let's see who's got the cannon and the control. Pitching challenge, velocity and command, some kind of a target thing where people could, almost like hockey does with the slap shot contest and the little plates in the goal. I think there's a way that that baseball could do something like that. And here's the twist. The winner of each of the skills events gets to draft one player from another team to add to their roster for the final day of competition. So, like, imagine the USA East winning that home run derby, and then they get to pick up one of the best players from Latin America for the championship. I add some drama. It adds some, like, competition to the skills competition, I think. Then day 3, you would have your third place game and your championship game. The winners from day 1 face off for the title. The losers battle for third. There's no gimmicks added in like home field advantage in the World Series that's been gone for a while. Just national pride, bragging rights, kind of intensity we saw in the World Baseball Classic. I mean, remember how electric those games were? That's the energy I'm chasing. So, I mean, I get it. All-star games are supposed to be fun. But somewhere along the way, I feel like we've just lost the spirit of competition. The Pro Bowl, like, it's a joke. The NBA All-Star Game, it's a layup line. MLB has a chance to do something different here. Something that actually matters to players and the fans. Imagine like Shohei Ohtani pitching against Mookie Betts in a championship game. Or Ronald Acuna racing Bobby Witt Jr. in a 90-foot sprint. That's not just fun. That stuff's unforgettable. I think we could do something cool here. Major League Baseball took a cool step, I think, by allowing the players to go back to wearing their team uniforms this year. I think that's something a lot of us have wanted to see, especially those of us who grew up like in the 70s and 80s and even early 90s. That was the way it was. That was the only benefit to having that representative player get in, was to see your uniform that you root for somewhere on that field. And I love the idea of it. Again, I would eliminate it from my idea, because I think if you're picking 4 teams, you're probably going to wind up picking somebody from every team, especially like some of those categories I think would be a little tougher to fill. So I could see you maybe dipping down into the talent pool even a little bit more. If you want to change this so that like you think that rewards players that don't necessarily deserve to be all-stars, I totally get that. And as far as like relating back to like older stats, or like, hey, this guy's been to 13 all-star games and that's a big deal. Well, if you went to this kind of format and somebody's in their rookie season and they play 15 years and they're a decent player from the world, good chance they're going to be on 13 all-star teams this way. So if you want to even those scales a little bit and not lose the integrity of that stat, how many all-star games you've been to, change it up. This is a completely separate competition during the all-star break. And Make the actual all-stars just a list. Make that distinction. The guys that are playing in this game, they're not necessarily the all-stars. If we were only picking 2 teams, this guy wouldn't be there, that guy wouldn't be there. I think there's a way that you could get around that where being named an all-star is different than playing in this competition. I think that sort of thing would be pretty cool. I think there'd be a lot of overlap. Don't get me wrong. But I think that's one way to maybe assuage that this changes history type thought, which I completely identify with. That's why I probably put some thought into it. So what do you think? Would you watch this version of the All-Star game? Would it bring back some excitement? Hit me up on socials or drop a comment. Let's get this conversation going. The All-Star game's coming up, and I know it's too late to do anything this year or the way they move, even next year. But just this is something that I think we should consider. I'd love to get your opinion on it. Let me know what you think. When we come back, let's talk about Don Kelly. What's Don Kelly actually changed here? What are some of his tendencies we're starting to notice? If you're running a business, you know that every missed call is money left on the table. Think about the last time you had a service emergency, like a burst pipe. If the first plumber didn't answer, did you wait? Nope. You called the next one. That's why having a reliable business line is so important, and that's why you need OpenPhone. OpenPhone is the #1 business phone system that helps you streamline and scale customer communication, all from an app on your phone or computer. Did you juggle 2 phones just to keep your business and personal calls separate? OpenPhone solves that instantly. OpenPhone is offering Locked On Pirates listeners 20% off your first 6 months at openphone.com/lockedonmlb. That's openphone.com/lockedonmlb. And if you have existing numbers with another service, OpenPhone will port them over at no extra charge. OpenPhone, no missed calls, no missed customers. All right, welcome back to Locked On Pirates. I want to talk about Don Kelly. We've talked about Don Kelly a lot. I think by and large, most fans that I've interacted with anyway, they're very sold on Don Kelly. I think they like what he's done. The record's been better under him. Now that we've kind of gotten to see it for a couple months, do you still feel as firm that he needs to come back even after they fire Ben Cherington? Do you still feel like that's the path to go? I still do. I like what he's done. But there's been a couple things that I think we can say haven't changed really with this coaching staff. Okay. I think they're still going into extended skids offensively, and they have a really hard time pulling the nose of the plane up. They're just crashing out for sometimes weeks at a time. I don't know if that's on a coach. I don't know if that's on a manager for sure. I would think that at some point it's on the hitting coach. But again, we talked about those home and away numbers. They're certainly not being coached one way at home and one way on the road. You know, nobody's giving them different hitting instructions on the road than they are at home. In fact, when you start getting a separation like that, I probably should have mentioned this in segment 1. But when you start getting 2 sides of a coin that look that polar opposite, like their home record and their away record, it starts to make you wonder if maybe they're doing something shenanigans wise at home. I don't want to be a conspiracy theorist, but there's absolutely nothing that changes about this team from home and away except for their performance. And it's really hard to not let your mind kind of travel a little bit into like what could possibly be contributing to said performance. But that's not what the third segment's about. It's about Donnie Kelly. I think one thing I've noticed is he has a tendency to have a little bit of a quick trigger with his starting pitchers, um, he kind of goes into some of these situations, I think, with a predetermined part of the game where he's gonna want to make a change. And he telegraphs it a little bit. You'll see him get somebody up in the bullpen many times before you've seen any kind of issue crop up with the pitcher who's actually on the mound. And then, therefore, he's ready for the move when a problem does arise and he actually does need to make the call. That's one big difference, I think, between Don Kelly and Derek Shelton. Derek Shelton was much more tentative to even get the reliever up because Derek Shelton considered it an outing when he got the reliever up. Don Kelly so far has not considered it an outing. If he gets a guy up, I think he's more capable of saying, like, hey, get loosened up, but don't get warmed up. You know what I mean? And I think we've seen him stretch some of those decisions over the course of a couple innings and give the reliever extra time to get ready. But the point is, he can have them put their foot down on the gas and get heated up quickly and be ready to make a change in reaction to something that's happening on the field. Whereas Derek Shelton would kind of be like, well, things are going bad. Get this guy up. And then by the time the guy got up and got warm, well, the situation's already unraveled to the point where you're done. You can send a guy out to visit the mound or whatever. You don't see Don Kelly have to do that a lot because, for the most part, he's ready for it. The other thing I think we've seen from Don Kelly that I don't really like personally, he loves to bring in relievers in the middle of innings. I personally hate that. I don't know why we do that. I don't think that adds anything. I can't say it hasn't worked. Okay. But when you have a guy like going out for like let's say he's going for the sixth inning, like Mike Burrows, we'll pick a guy out of the sky. And you let him start the sixth inning and he gets the first two outs rather efficiently. I don't know why you can't just let him get that third out. I don't know why so often we have to go to a reliever there. It just feels to me like every time you ask a reliever to do an up and down, because what happens is you put them in for that 1 out, 2 outs, however you decide to break up the inning, and then they have to sit down, and then he brings them back out to start the next inning, often to be replaced by somebody else mid-inning and or asked to carry the next inning themselves. Well, that can be dangerous, I think. Not all these guys are built for ups and downs. Meaning how many times you go back into the dugout, cool off, get up, go back out to the mound, warm up, continue your outing. Relievers and starters are not the same there. Now, a lot of the Pirates relievers have been starters recently. So that probably lessens that to a degree. But I don't think that it lessens it so much that it makes a lot of sense to me. To me, just let the innings be clean if you can. If you want to play lefty-righty matchups, okay, I get that. That makes sense. All right. Yeah, Kristen Yelich is coming up and you've got Colin Ferguson warm. Sure. I get it. Do it. But if Mike Burrows gets the first two guys out and they're right-handed hitters, and then the third guy is a right-handed hitter, I don't see why you need to come yank him. If he's sitting at like 80 pitches, let him do it. Let him get the inning over. Let him get that cap. I don't get that. So that's one little nitpicky thing I have with Don Kelly. He's got to figure this thing out on the road. That's one thing. He's got to. There's got to be something there that he has to identify as is going wrong. I think defensively, he's focused on it a lot more. The plays seem a little more crisp coming in from the outfield. Even O'Neal Cruz, that throw that he made to home plate that everyone was going nuts about, 105 mile an hour. Great play. Perfect throw. Great play by Henry to catch it, deke the runner so he didn't slide. Everything was done right in that play. Up to and including the one thing that most people probably didn't notice, which is that throw went right through the cutoff man. IKF let that ball go through to get to home, but he could have cut it off just as easily. That tells you that O'Neal Cruz was doing technically exactly what is expected of him, and IKF is doing technically exactly what is expected of him, and Henry Davis is doing exactly what is expected of him. That's not an easy play to have come together with all the chaos on the base paths, the the fact you have to get to the ball first. You got to set your feet right, which Cruz did for the first time in quite some time that I've seen. It was a really nicely executed play. I think people maybe don't think about how much those things are coached. And Don Kelly has done a much better job with that since he's taken over, mostly because he does a little more than just delegate it. I mean, he's getting real hands on with the stuff. And he wants these guys practicing like it's actually the game environment. So I do think, like, defensively, they've taken a little bit of a jump. Pitching wise, I I think that bullpen tendency is something that we talked about. I'd like to see him get away from this need to, like, hardcore rest guys in the middle of the season like he's doing with Paul Skeens or even Mike Burrows right now. I'd really like to see them just let the pitchers kind of go until you're spoken to, you know? Let's see what they can do until they show you that they need removed. You know, you can tell when a guy's fatiguing. And I don't think that's what we've seen for some of these instances where he pulls them out of the game. To me, I think that's the next evolution. He's got to get to the point where he's not trying to manage the entire game inning by inning with his relievers. I like him being prepared, like I talked about, but you shouldn't be prepared for something and then force it into an eventuality because it's what you thought would happen. When what you thought would happen doesn't happen, you need to let the status quo go and let that player finish the job that they started. I think what I talked about with starting relievers mid-inning, that kind of applies to the starters too, because he does that a lot with them as well. They come out for that next inning, they get an out, they get pulled out, and it's like, so you just made him go through that up and down, 10 more warm-up throws with intensity, like another batter at least. You could have spared him all of that. Or you can let him be rewarded for it and get the inning. Like, but if you just have him do all that to come out and give you 2 or 3 pitches and get an out, I think you're misusing the asset a little bit. That's all. But all in all, man, my report card on Donnie Kelly remains pretty positive. I think he's got some big things to work on. I think his tools that he's using to get the job done are inadequate, but he somehow managed to have a winning record at home. It's time for him to work on the road. The road needs to get better. And this is a guy that was a journeyman himself and should know a lot of the things that happen to guys on the road. So I'd hope that he's starting to pick up on some of what he's seeing. I don't see the same kind of intensity. I don't see the same approach at the plate. I just don't see the same belief that they're going to pull out a W as we do when they're at home. When they're at home, they're a different feeling unit. They really are. And again, it ain't because us. Something's going on. That's up for Don Kelly to figure out. It's up for another show, too. That's all I got for you today. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Let's go, Bucks.